Fortune's Progeny, The Ascent, Episode 11, The Calm Before, and the First Dividend. The approval of the Atelier proposal did not bring the relief Trent had anticipated. Instead, it brought a new kind of tension, the weight of expectation. He had proven he could think like a steward. Now he had to prove he could act like one consistently, without the luxury of a single dramatic insight. The days settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal, if normal meant juggling 3 parallel existences. By day, he was the diligent analyst at Kingston & Rowe, maintaining the appearance of a young professional climbing a conventional ladder. By night and weekend, he was the relentless debt attacker, his avalanche now a well-oiled machine. And in the margins, on the bus, in the shared kitchen at odd hours, during his Thursday coffee with Maya, he was the contender, studying, strategizing, waiting for the next challenge. The house, against his initial resistance, became a strange kind of sanctuary. The noise, the chaos, the sticky notes about compost and cleaning rotations, it was all so thoroughly normal that it provided a counterweight to the extraordinary pressure of the protocol. Arjun's detailed explanations of fungal networks were a reminder that there were other kinds of expertise in the world, other measures of a life well lived. Chloe's exhausted post-call debriefs were a lesson in endurance under conditions far more brutal than a spreadsheet. And Leo, for all his crypto-induced anxiety, was a mirror. Every time Trent saw his friend's face tighten at a market update, he was reminded of the cliff he himself had avoided. The system, the wall, the avalanche, the covenant, was not just a set of rules. It was a lifeline. The first tangible dividend of his new approach came from an unexpected corner of his old life. His manager, Claire, pulled him aside after a team meeting.
I don't know what's changed, but your work has been sharper lately, more focused, and the team notices you're calmer, less frantic.
She said, her tone genuinely curious. Trent shrugged, deflecting.
Just some personal discipline stuff. Prioritizing.
Claire nodded, unconvinced but not probing.
Well, keep it up. There's a senior analyst position opening up in the next quarter. I'm not promising anything, but you're on my radar.
It was a small validation, but it mattered. The system wasn't just saving him from debt, it was making him better at his job. The clarity of purpose, the elimination of financial noise, the psychological space created by the wall, it was all compounding, just like the interest he was no longer paying. He locked it in his stewardship binder that night, under a new heading, Professional Spillover. Entry: the discipline of the avalanche is bleeding into my work. Less anxiety about money means more mental bandwidth for actual problems. The system is not a distraction for my career. It is the foundation of it. The wall protects not just my finances, but my focus. The next vault communication arrived without fanfare. It was not a new challenge, but an update. The subject line read, Consolidated Review, Preliminary. The message was brief, almost clinical. Contender Gamma has been placed on probationary review. Grounds: violation of operational constraints in preliminary test of capital stewardship. Details withheld. Probation period, 30 days. Further infraction will result in removal. The field remains at 3. All contenders are reminded that the protocol assesses not only strategic insight, but adherence to process and integrity of action. Trent read it twice. Gamma, the aggressive tech-savvy cousin whose test sum had reportedly been allocated to a concentrated position in a volatile sector, had stumbled. Not because of a bad investment, but because of a broken rule. The violation was unspecified, but the message was clear. The trustees valued discipline as much as returns. He thought of Felicity, withdrawn under the weight of irreconcilable pressure. He thought of Gamma, now on probation. 2 contenders, both talented, both ambitious, both faltering not because they lacked intelligence, but because they lacked system. He opened his own tracker. The personal loan was down to $1,890. The avalanche was rolling. The wall was rebuilt to $1,000 after the car repair. His test sum, boring and steady, was up 3.2%. Nothing spectacular, but positive. He was not winning any sprints, but he was still running.
That Thursday, over coffee at the place with the sourdough brownies, Maya asked him a question that cut to the heart of things.
Do you ever think about what happens after?
After what?
He asked, stirring his latte.
After all of this, the competition, the debt, the secret life, what's on the other side?
Trent was quiet for a long moment. He had been so consumed with the process, the next payment, the next challenge, the next log entry, that he hadn't allowed himself to imagine an end state. The system was designed to build a foundation. But what was he building it for? He finally said.
Freedom, I think. Not just financial freedom. The freedom to choose. To wake up and not have my first thought be about money. To look at a problem and see it as a problem, not as a threat to my survival.
Maya nodded, her gaze thoughtful.
That sounds like a life, not just a spreadsheet.
It's the same thing. The spreadsheet is just the map. The life is the territory.
I'd like to see that territory someday, when you're ready to show it.
She smiled, a small, warm thing. It was a subtle invitation. It didn't carry the weight of a demand or an ultimatum. It was an invitation. And Trent, for all his discipline, allowed himself to imagine accepting it. That night, in his small room, he opened the stewardship binder and wrote a final entry before sleep. Entry: the field narrows. Gamma is on probation. Felicity is gone. The pressure is real, but it is not unique to me. The question is not whether I can endure, but whether I can endure without losing the parts of myself that matter. Maya asked about the after. I don't know what it looks like, but for the first time, I want to find out. He closed the binder and looked at the photograph of Alistair's workshop. The founder's eyes, fixed on his craft, seemed to hold a patience Trent was only beginning to learn. The forge was still hot, but he was learning to work with the fire, not just survive it.